Hey y'all, Toad here. Well, just finished watching the president's speech, and while there wasn't a whole lot in there that was surprising, I just wanted to share a few thoughts with you. I have not yet read the 23 executive orders, so I won't go too far on that. But the speech's philosophy, to me, was pretty crystal clear. Now, the things he wants Congress to do, okay, he's in for a big fight, but as in any haggling done, any dealing being done, you want to ask initially for much more than you will ultimately, of course, settle for. Whether or not you believe the assault rifle ban and the magazine ban and all this stuff is possible, and yeah, there will be a fight in Congress. The important thing I took from that speech was the registration issue. Now, I, of course, am a constitutionalist, and this issue is very clear to me. I do not compromise constitutional rights. Period. End of story. End of debate. That aside, in my mind, the important thing that was contained in that speech was the registration issue. Just stop and think for a second about what he wants. Now, when you have a firearm go from a licensed dealer to a citizen, you have the background checks. Okay, now that's bad enough because you're actually creating a database of ownership of a constitutionally guaranteed tool. What's horrifying about what he just said in the speech is that he intends to put in place a system where if one private citizen transfers this tool to another private citizen, there has to be a background check. Now just stop and think about that for a second. In order to implement that with any kind of success, it would mean that both the buyer and the seller would have to be 100% completely in the quote-unquote system. And then at any given time, there would have to be a transfer take place through some kind of electronic or live conversation with the background check entity. Does anybody besides me find it a little disconcerting that not only the buyer but the seller have to be 100% in some kind of system to transfer a tool? The amount of bureaucracy necessary to do that alone is frightening. The amount of personal information in both the buyers and the sellers that'll have to be transferred to the Fed is staggering to me. But mark my words, folks, this is the key. Does this president care about firearms in general, except for their eradication? No, not at all. Because as anybody with half a brain knows, that banning a type of rifle just based on its looks and banning magazine capacity just doesn't work. Can't work, never will work. I look at banning magazine capacity, the analogy I would use would be something like, well, we should ban all cars that can go over, say, 55 miles an hour because the crashes will be less. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And most thinking people will tell you. And I want to make a real important point here. This is not a Democrat Republican issue. It's not at all. This is simply a control issue. How much control, how much privacy, how much of your own personal sovereignty are you willing to give up to lose a piece of a constitutional right on legislation that has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to not affect the intended reason? An assault weapons ban will not stop people from doing what they do. People misusing a tool, this will not stop it. This is a feel-good legislation that's being put out over the bodies of dead children. I can't tell you the rage that I feel when somebody uses tragedy for this kind of blatant furthering of an agenda.